Well, what was it like 50 years ago? What led to this segregation? Where were the last remnants of integrated baseball? And what's this have to do with Celoron, New York? Let's see if this book has some clues to assist us. The Cuban Giants, the first all-professional black team, competed successfully as a unit in the minor leagues from 1889 through 1891. Then we go on to read something quite astonishing. The last all-black team in the minor leagues was the 1898 Celoron, New York club of the Iron and Oil League. You gotta be kidding me. Is there more proof of this? Let's check. David Kraft's book, The Negro Leagues, went on to say, by 1898, the last traces of black players in organized baseball could be found in the Pennsylvania Iron and Oil League. The Acme-colored Giants, with an anemic one-loss percentage of 163, shut down operations in mid-season. With that team's demise, a turbulent, maddening period in organized baseball had finally given way to a slightly calmer but racially segregated period in which only whites could play at the minor and major league levels. The last all-black team in Celoron, New York? I wonder why. During the 1920s and 1930s, there was a very famous semi-professional league called the Jamestown Spiders, also known as the Billy Webb's Spiders. And one of the members of that team is a gentleman by the name of Vince McNamara. And they play baseball in Celoron. Among the teammates is the manager Billy Webb. Also on that team was a pitcher by the name of Swat Erickson, who had a terrific career with the Washington Senators. And also a pitcher by the name of Hugh Bedient, who played with the Boston Red Sox, and in his rookie year was one of the stars of the 1912 world champion Red Sox, who beat Christy Mathewson in one game, saved a game, and pitched a tie. Quite the team.
My name is Robert Peterson, and I am the author of Only the Ball Was White, which is a history of Negro baseball before Jackie Robinson. It covers the years between the beginning of the 20th century and 1946, when Jackie Robinson became the first admitted black player to play in the organized leagues of baseball. In researching that book, I discovered that Jamestown is worth a large footnote in the history of Negro baseball because it was receptive to black players at a time when most cities were not.
I wonder why that was. David Kraft says black players graced organized baseball with their presence on white teams well into the 1890s, but only in isolated cases. Integration was dead. All black teams of the period, however, were gaining some measure of acceptance in the country's myriad of minor leagues. What about the history of black baseball in the 19th century?
A large footnote in the history of Negro baseball because it was receptive to black players at a time when most cities were not. In 1890 and 1891, Jamestown was represented in the old New York Penn League. This is a league that preceded the league that the Jammers are in now, by a team, and the first baseman for that team was a man named R.A. Kelly. Kelly was a black man. He had played earlier in Danville, Illinois, in a league there. And the Jamestown papers, interestingly, never referred to the fact that he was black, but he was known to be black, and he was so identified in early sporting papers, but the Jamestown Evening Journal never mentioned it at all. Kelly, by the way, was quite a good player. I don't know how Jamestown made out in those 2 seasons in the New York Penn League.
Well, the answer to the question comes in this picture that Russ Dietrich provided. When we look down, and in 1890, the team, Jamestown, with Kelly as its first baseman, was, in fact, the pennant winner of the New York and Pennsylvania League. We learned from the encyclopedia that R.A. Kelly, for the periods 1889 and 91, played first base, second base, shortstop for Danville in the Illinois-Indiana League, and Jamestown, New York. In fact, the history of black baseball became the subject of an article by Jamestown Post-Journal editor Jim Riggs recently, and he spotlighted Mr. Kelly.
Then subsequently, the Jamestown area was represented in the late 19th century by 2 other entries. Both were in a league called the Iron and Oil League, which was a minor league covering mostly small cities in northwestern Pennsylvania. And in 1895, the team that had been in Sharon, Pennsylvania, in the Iron and Oil League, went to Celoron in mid-season. They weren't doing very well in Sharon, and so the franchise was shifted to Celoron, and they played the rest of the season there, although in fact that league was in trouble too, and it disbanded in August. Basically, the teams broke up because they weren't drawing enough folks. That was not unusual, by the way, in those days. It was quite common for leagues to break up in mid-season. The thing that was interesting about the Iron and Oil League in 1895 was that it had the rookie Hannes Wagner, who went on to become one of the greatest of all baseball players. He was in his rookie season as a professional in that year. He played for Warren in Warren, Pennsylvania, in that league. So he would have played in Celoron on.
The team did disband. The headlines of August 28, 1895 says it all. The Celoron Club retires after a brief and disastrous existence. The article goes on to state the Celoron baseball team is no more. It laid down the axe at the feet of the Warrenites Tuesday and retired from the field forever. Its life was gentle and the elements so little mixed in it that its parting was as its birth, humbly at the bottom of the percentage ladder. Once or twice the team came out and won a game or two, but it finally gave up and died. As the only remaining teams, Warren and Wheeling played a World Series, with Wheeling winning in 1895. This team was an all-white team, and the first team, professional team, to play in Celoron, New York.
Then, again, in the Iron and Oil League in the year 1898, the last black players were involved in organized baseball in that league until Jackie Robinson came along. And it was an all-black team called the Celoron Acme Colored Giants. They were quite a young team. They were none, as far as I know, were from Jamestown, and the promoter and manager of the team, whose name was Harry Bright, was not from Jamestown either. I'm not exactly sure where he was from, but he was not from Jamestown. I suspect that he was invited to come and represent Celoron in the Iron and Oil League by the operators of Celoron's amusement park. In any event, they played about 30 games there, the Celoron Acme Colored Giants. But again, that league was in trouble.
This article appeared in the Jamestown Journal on July 8th. New Baseball Club. Celoron Giants disband. A strong club secured to take their place. The Celoron Colored Giants, connected with the Oil and Iron Baseball League, disbanded Thursday. Bad playing and consequent poor patronage was the cause. George Maltby of the Celoron Amusement Company informs the Journal that they have engaged a team to take its place. In less than 1 month, the team that took the place of the Celoron Acme Black Giants likewise folded. The problems were consistent. Without a winning team in Jamestown, the sport will never be a success. In order to have a good players and get the best results from them, they must be paid at the time and the amount agreed upon. Attendance sagged. The team did poorly, hence the end of baseball in Celoron in the 19th century. But what did all of this mean in the history of baseball? Listen to Bob Peterson.
And whoever was the owner of the franchise brought in some white players from a disbanded team in Louisville, Kentucky, and they played as Celoron then for a couple of more weeks before the whole league disintegrated. And that was the last. Those were the last admitted black players in organized baseball until 1946, when Robinson joined Montreal in the International League as a rookie for the farm team of the Brooklyn Dodgers. Now, I discovered that Jamestown is worth a large footnote in the history of Negro baseball because it was receptive to black players at a time when most cities were not.
One of the early chapters of the book, Only the Ball Was White, Bob Peterson writes as follows: No league was open to the Negroes for the next 2 years. Then in 1898, a young all-Negro team wrote the final chapter to the story of black men and white leagues during baseball's early days. The team was organized by a brash white man named Harry Curtis, who promised that we will have the strongest colored club in America if we are the youngest. One of the interesting anecdotes occurred further on after their first game, where the Sporting Life wrote, Celoron drove home from here Saturday night, being their first home game, and they enlivened the air with singing, and they can sing as well as they can play. The Negroes are a jolly, gentlemanly crowd and an honor to the league. Their home opener, they lost 15-4. The Jamestown Evening Journal wrote the above article. The team lost early and often and never seemed to get on track. A postscript to the story was recently unearthed from a letter from George Lurchin. You will recall that Bob Peterson referred us to R.A. Kelly as one of the last black players in organized baseball who played in Jamestown, New York in 1890 and 1891. Mr. Peterson inquired as to how well that team did. Ironically, in a letter from George Lurchin, a center fielder with the 1942 Jamestown Falcons, a few answers were given. This particular newspaper article of Saturday, September 12, 1942, highlighted the New York and Pennsylvania League, champions of 1890. By golly, it's the same picture, the same team, yet there's a caption. Let's find out what it said. The caption indicated the picture represented Jamestown's first pennant-winning baseball club. Here is the local aggregation which carried off the championship in the New York and Pennsylvania League way back in 1890 under the management of Herbert Whitney II, playing its home games at Marvin Park near the boat landing. The other clubs in the league represented Erie, Dunkirk, Meadville, Bradford, and Olean. Here's another answer. The local club again won the pennant in 1891, and after that the league folded up for lack of adequate support. We also now know this picture came through the courtesy of a Parker Osterstrom, proprietor of the Park Barbershop in Brooklyn Square, which is no longer. What do we know about Herbert Whitney II? Herbert Whitney II was the son of George Washington II Jr. Mr. George Washington II was a very active banker. He had two sons, Herbert Whitney and Georgia Lucia. We also know that Herbert W. II married Cora Sheldon. Cora Sheldon was the daughter of Porter Sheldon, a famed lawyer, businessman, and founder of the American Aristocrat, which ultimately became part of Eastman Kodak. We know that Porter Sheldon was extremely successful. We also know that Marvin Park was near the boat landing where the steamers came and went on an ongoing basis, leaving from Jamestown and going up the lake through by Bemis Point and Mayville.